A Mandalorian named Din Djarin was tasked by an Imperial client to retrieve a mysterious package on a desert planet. With the guidance of Quill, an Ugnaught technician, Din discovered the location of the package, where it was surrounded by a large number of bandits. Din worked with a fellow bounty hunter, an assassin droid named IG-11, to clear out the bandits and enter the treasure room. The package turned out to be a 50-year-old infant of the same species as Jedi Master Yoda, known for now as the Child. Din shot IG-11 to save the infant's life. When he returned to his ship, the Razor Crest, Din discovered that his ship was dismantled, the parts stolen by a group of Jawa scavengers. Din turned to Quill for help, who helped him negotiate a deal with the Jawas to retrieve an egg from a dangerous creature known as the Mudhorn. Din was put into mortal danger retrieving the egg from the Mudhorn, but ultimately succeeded in the mission, slaying the Mudhorn after being saved by the Child using the Force. Din delivered the egg back to the Jawas. The Jawas gave the parts back to Din. Din repaired his ship with Quill's help and flew back to the planet of Navarro, where he delivered the Child back to the Imperial client. Din received a hefty payment in the form of Beskar steel, which he used to construct a new set of Mandalorian armor. Din Djarin soon developed an emotional attachment toward the Child during the latter's absence. He proceeded to rescue the Child from the Imperial remnant's hands, killing a small band of stormtroopers during the process. This broke the code of the Bounty Hunter Guild, which led to the entire guild going after Din while the Mandalorian was on his way back to the ship with the Child. Din was able to escape from the Bounty Hunter Guild with the help of the local Mandalorian convert. In the following episodes throughout the first season, Din Djarin took on several missions while being on the run protecting the Child from the Bounty Hunters and the Imperial remnants. He helped a group of local villagers defend their village from a group of bandits with the help of Cara Dune, a former Alderaanian royal guard turned mercenary. He helped a young bounty hunter named Toro Calican hunt down the dangerous bounty hunter Fennec Shan, before proceeding to kill Toro Calican after the latter turned on him and kidnapped the Child. He also joined a group of mercenaries and bounty hunters, one of which being a former Imperial named Mix Mayfield, on the mission to break a Twi'lek criminal out of a New Republic prison ship, before proceeding to trick the criminal into getting killed by the New Republic military after the criminal set him up for death. Eventually, Din returned to Navarro, recruiting Cara Dune, Quill, and a reprogrammed IG-11 that was salvaged and repaired by Quill during the process, after receiving an offer to cooperate with the Bounty Hunter Guild leader Greef Karga under a flag of truce to help kill the client to free the settlement from Imperial control in exchange for removing the bounty on Din and the Child's head. While Greef Karga's initial true motive was to lower Din's guard and kill him to take the Child, he changed his mind and became protective of the Child after the latter force-healed him from a mortal wound inflicted by night creatures. Together with Cara Dune, Quill, and Greef Karga, Din devised a plan to kill the client by using the Child's floating cradle as a red herring to get close to the target, while Quill carried the Child back to the Razor Crest for protection and shelter. They were then outsmarted by Moff Gideon, the Imperial officer who led the Imperial remnant and who tasked the client to put out the bounty on the Child. Moff Gideon's Imperial forces killed the client, trapping Din, Cara, and Karga in the Cantina's wreckage. Quill was killed by 2 scout troopers who intercepted Din's transmission and captured the Child before the Ugnaught could reach the Razor Crest. IG-11 rescued the Child from the scout troopers and proceeded to break Din and the others out of Gideon's siege, before getting trapped inside the cantina once again when Gideon mortally wounded Din by blowing up an E-Web's fuse box right next to the Mandalorian. While the others were looking for a method to escape the cantina, the Child saved their lives by deflecting a flame trooper's flamethrower attack. Eventually, the crew found a secret passage and escaped into the underground as IG-11 patched up Din's wounds and saved the Mandalorian's life. Din considered asking the local Mandalorian convert for assistance, only to find out that most of the Mandalorians on Navarro were killed by the Imperials, while the Armorer, a female Mandalorian blacksmith responsible for forging Din's Beskar armor, stayed behind to salvage the armor of the dead. She gave Din the mission to reunite the Child with the Jedi Knight, granted Din the signet of Clan Mudhorn, and gifted Din with a jetpack, before sending the Mandalorian on his way, while she stayed behind to fend off Gideon's incoming stormtroopers. IG-11 sacrificed himself to destroy a squad of stormtroopers ready to ambush Din's crew. and Din used his new jetpack to defeat Moff Gideon by sending his TIE fighter crashing into the ground. With the enemy defeated, Din bid Cara Dune and Greef Karga farewell, going on the journey to find for the child a Jedi Knight, while the latter two stayed on Navarro to rebuild the settlement into something better. The second season begins with Din Djarin looking for another Mandalorian, who was said to be on Tatooine. Din headed to the designated location on Tatooine, only to discover an imposter wearing Boba Fett's armor. The imposter's name was Cobb Vanth, the Marshal of Mos Pelgo, who traded the armor off the Jawas, who stole it off Boba Fett. Cobb Vanth made a deal with Din, asking him to help him kill a krayt dragon that threatened the settlement in exchange for Boba Fett's armor. Din got help from a group of Tusken Raiders, uniting both the villagers and Tuskens for the hunt, and successfully killed the krayt dragon by having it swallow a living bantha tied with bombs and blowing it up from the inside. As promised, Cobb Vanth gave Din Boba Fett's armor. Having obtained the armor, Din learned from the technician Peli Motto that the Frog Lady could help him find a group of Mandalorians in exchange for a ride to the water planet of Trask. On Trask, Din ran into the Mandalorian Bo-Katan, who promised him the location of a Jedi to her acquaintance in exchange for helping her capture an Imperial ship. When the mission was done, Bo-Katan pointed Din to Ahsoka Tano's location, where Ahsoka was fighting to free a city from a female warlord named Morgan Elsbeth. Din encountered Morgan Elsbeth first, the latter offering him a Beskar spear in exchange for helping her hunt down Ahsoka, which was how the Mandalorian found Ahsoka. Once Din convinced Ahsoka that he was a friendly and informed her of the child, Ahsoka engaged in a non-verbal conversation with the child through the Force, during which she discovered that the child's real name was Grogu. Din learned from Ahsoka that Grogu was born and trained in the Jedi Temple during the Galactic Republic era, and lost his memory after the Jedi Temple fell under Order 66. Din helped Ahsoka free the city from Morgan Elsbeth in exchange for Ahsoka training Grogu, but Ahsoka still refused to train Grogu in the end. In substitution, Ahsoka advised Din to head to the planet Tython, where Din could place Grogu on top of a Seeing Stone in order to summon a possible Jedi willing to take the child in for training. When Din arrived at Tython, placing Grogu on the Seeing Stone, nothing happened. He left Grogu alone on the Seeing Stone to confront two newcomers, who turned out to be Boba Fett and Fennec Shand, whom Boba rescued after her presumed death at the hands of Tora Calican, the young bounty hunter Din killed for kidnapping Grogu. Boba demanded the return of his armor, while Din refused, not knowing about Boba's Mandalorian heritage. Their meeting was soon interrupted by Moff Gideon's Imperial remnant, who tracked the Razor Crest to the planet through a tracker placed on the ship during a repair back on Navarro. Boba and Fennec helped Din repel the stormtroopers, while Din attempted to retrieve Grogu, only to find Grogu trapped in the energy field of an activated Seeing Stone. The Seeing Stone was deactivated soon after Din joined the battle to hold off the stormtroopers, and Moff Gideon successfully kidnapped Grogu by sending a squad of Dark Troopers. He also ordered the Razor Crest blown up, causing Din to lose all his possessions except for his armor and the Beskar spear gifted by Ahsoka. Having retrieved his armor, Boba convinced Din of his Mandalorian heritage by showing him Jango Fett's genetic code and offered to help Din rescue Grogu. In order to find the location of Gideon's ship, where Grogu was held prisoner, Din went to Cara Dune for help. Now a marshal for the New Republic, Cara used her position of power to bail the mercenary Mix Mayfield out of prison, so the latter could help Din break into an Imperial facility to download the location of Gideon's ship. Din was forced to take off his helmet for a facial scan and to avoid blowing his cover, breaking the Mandalorian creed for the first time. Mayfield encountered and killed an old Imperial officer he served under, and the two successfully escaped from the Imperial facility with the coordinates to Gideon's ship. Cara allowed Mayfield to escape by faking a death report, and Din recruited Bo-Katan and her fellow Mandalorian comrade Koska Reeves for the rescue mission. The crew captured Dr. Pershing to gain a tactical advantage over Moff Gideon, learning more about the nearly indestructible Dark Troopers on Gideon's ship. Din and the others infiltrated Gideon's ship through a stolen Imperial aircraft. Cara, Bo-Katan, Koska, and Fennec fighting their way to the main deck for distraction, while Din headed off alone to rescue Grogu, banishing the Dark Troopers on board out of the airlock during the process. Din and Moff Gideon engaged in the duel, Gideon's Dark Saber against Din's Beskar Spear. Din overpowered Gideon, holding him captive as well as becoming the rightful owner of the Darksaber. Din and the others were soon trapped on the deck as the Dark Troopers flew back into the ship, ready to kill the crew to rescue Gideon. At the last moment, a mysterious Jedi arrived and cut down all the Dark Troopers on board the ship with his green lightsaber. The Jedi revealed himself to be Luke Skywalker, and he was made aware of Grogu's presence through the Seeing Stone. Luke offered to take Grogu in for training, and Din bid Grogu farewell, taking off his helmet once again so that Grogu could see his face for the first time before they said goodbye. In the Book of Boba Fett, Din Djarin took on a bounty to hunt down a crime boss in exchange for information on the location of a Mandalorian convert, where Din discovered that the armorer and Paz Vizsla survived the Empire's attack on Navarro. Din showed the armorer the Darksaber, to which the armorer told him the history of the weapon and how Bo-Katan's possession of the Darksaber led to the Mandalorian civilization's destruction at the hands of the Empire. At the armorer's advice, Din had the Beskar spear reforged into a tiny chainmail meant for Grogu, since Beskar steel is meant only for protection in Mandalorian culture. Paz Vizsla challenged Din to a duel for the Darksaber's ownership, as the saber was created and owned by his ancestor Tar Vizsla. Din defeated Paz in the duel, retaining the Darksaber's ownership, but was excommunicated from the Mandalorian convert after the armorer forced him to reveal that he broke the code by taking off the helmet. The armorer told Din that the only way to atone was to bathe in the water of the mines of Mandalore. Din then headed off to Tatooine to visit the technician Peli Motto, who informed him of a new ship for him to replace the destroyed Razor Crest. The ship turned out to be a Naboo starfighter, which Din and Peli worked together to rebuild and improve upon to Din's liking. Having obtained a new ship, Din flew to the planet of Ossus, where Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Academy was built, and where Grogu received his training. Din encountered Ahsoka Tano, who advised him against seeing Grogu, fearing that it might distract Grogu from his Jedi training. In the end, Din asked Ahsoka to give the chainmail to Grogu in his stead and returned to Tatooine, where he was recruited by Fennec Shand to help Boba Fett, now taking Jabba's place as Mos Espa's new crime boss. To repel the Pike Syndicate's invasion, Din proceeded to Mos Pelgo, where he would recruit Cobb Vanth and the others to assist in Mos Espa's defense. The citizens of Mos Pelgo were initially reluctant to help, but changed their minds when Cobb Vanth was mortally wounded by the bounty hunter Cad Bane, who was hired by the Pike Syndicate. Meanwhile, in Din's absence, Grogu continued to receive training under Luke Skywalker, who taught him the basic abilities to use the Force for self-defense. By the end of Grogu's training, Luke offered Grogu a choice between two gifts that represented two paths. If Grogu chose Yoda's lightsaber, Grogu would stay on Ossus to continue his training as a Jedi Knight, but he may never get to see Din again. If he chose the chainmail, however, Grogu may return to Din Djarin with enough Force abilities to defend himself. Grogu chose the chainmail, and so Luke sent Grogu to Peli Motto's workshop on Tatooine, in an X-Wing piloted by R2-D2. Din Djarin, Boba Fett, and Fennec Shand joined forces with Boba's swoop gang, the Wookiee bounty hunter Black Chrysanthemum, and Mos Pelgo's militia in a battle against the Pike Syndicate. During the battle, Din was reunited with Grogu, whom Peli Motto brought into the middle of battle without knowing that there was a battle going on. Eventually, the Pikes were defeated, with Boba defeating Cad Bane in hand-to-hand combat, Fennec assassinating the Pike Syndicate's leaders, as well as Grogu using the Force to calm down Boba's rancor that almost fell out of control. After the defense of Mos Espa, Din returned to his voyage, piloting his newly acquired Naboo starfighter. At Grogu's request, Din Djarin punched the lightspeed button, speeding the ship to its next unknown destination. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. If you like my video, be sure to like and subscribe for more about Star Wars lore. I'll see you in the next video.